January 20th, 1953, 11:27 a.m. North Portico of the White House, Washington, D.C. A black Cadillac limousine glides to a stop on the crisp winter gravel. Secret Service agents snap to attention. Inside the car sits General Dwight D. Eisenhower, five-star hero of Europe, president-elect in less than an hour, staring straight ahead through the windshield at the most famous front door in the world. The door does not open. You can feel the silence stretch like a tripwire. White House staff hover on the steps, breath fogging in the cold. Reporters crane their necks. Cameras click like machine guns. Tradition says the incoming president walks up those steps, shakes the hand of the man leaving office, maybe shares a quick coffee inside, a quiet passing of the torch. But Eisenhower doesn't move. His jaw is set, eyes cold steel. Beside him, Mamie Eisenhower shifts uncomfortably in her mink coat. In the back seat, aides exchange nervous glances. Upstairs, in the private quarters, Harry S. Truman checks his watch again. He's already said goodbye to the cooks, the ushers, the telephone operators, everyone who kept this place running for 8 brutal years. Bess and Margaret wait with him, coats on. The coffee is poured, the sandwiches are cut. Still, no knock. Truman's military aide, General Robert Dennison, peers out the window. He's just sitting there, Mr. President. Harry Truman lets out a short, bitter laugh that doesn't reach his eyes. Let him sit. Down on the driveway, the seconds crawl. 30, 40, a full minute. Eric Severed from CBS whispers to his producer, "This is shocking, absolutely shocking." Finally, the White House doors swing open. Out steps Harry Truman, short, bespectacled, Missouri straight-backed, followed by Bess and their daughter Margaret. Only then does Eisenhower climb out of the Cadillac. No handshake on the portico, no step across the threshold. The most powerful house in America has just become forbidden ground to the man about to lead it. Cameras explode in white flashes as the two men meet on the gravel. Forced smiles, a curt nod. They slide into the back seat together for the ride to the Capitol. 2 presidents, 8 years of history, and a canyon of bitterness between them. You can cut the air with a bayonet. Because this isn't just protocol. This is personal. And it started 8 years earlier with a woman, a letter, and a threat that could have ended Eisenhower's career before it ever reached the White House.
March 12, 1944. Grosvenor Square, London, 2:17 a.m. A single lamp burns in the Supreme Commander's office. Dwight Eisenhower sits alone in shirt sleeves, tie loosened, the wake of D-Day pressing on his shoulders like a rucksack full of bricks. Outside, fog swallows the city. Inside, the room smells of burnt coffee and cigarette smoke thick enough to chew. His British driver and aide, Captain K. Summersby, lingers by the door. She's been with him since North Africa. Elegant, calm under fire, the one person who can read his moods before he speaks them. Tonight, her face is pale. "Sir, this just came by diplomatic pouch, marked personal, from Washington." Eisenhower tears open the plain envelope. One sheet of White House stationery. Harry Truman's handwriting. Blunt, no flourishes. He reads it once. Then again, slower, the blood draining from his face. The letter is short, devastating. It informs General Eisenhower in the plainest terms possible that Army intelligence has intercepted a series of personal letters between Eisenhower and Miss Summersby. Letters that go far beyond professional courtesy. Letters that, if published, would destroy a marriage, a reputation, and quite possibly the Allied command structure on the eve of the greatest invasion in history. Truman doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He simply reminds Eisenhower that he is a married man, that Mamie is back in the States reading every rumor in the columns, and that the President of the United States will not tolerate behavior that could hand Joseph Goebbels the propaganda victory of the century. Then the hammer. If these reports are accurate, I will relieve you of command tomorrow and send you home in disgrace. No appeal, no court-martial for the cameras, just gone. Eisenhower's hand trembles, only for a second. Then he folds the letter with deliberate calm and slides it into his breast pocket, right over his heart. Kay watches him, eyes wide. "What is it, Ike?" He doesn't answer. Instead, he walks to the window, stares into the blacked-out city, and says the only thing that matters. "Harry Truman just put a loaded gun to my head, and he's the only man on Earth who can pull the trigger." Because Truman isn't bluffing. He has the files. He has the photographs taken by Army counterintelligence outside Claridge's hotel. He has sworn statements from chauffeurs and hotel staff. And most terrifying of all, he has the moral authority of a president who caught Eisenhower breaking the one rule every soldier understands. Never give the enemy something they can use to hurt you worse than bullets. Eisenhower turns back to Kay, voice low, almost a whisper. "If this gets out, the invasion dies before a single man hits the beach. Congress will demand my head. Churchill will have a stroke. Stalin will laugh himself sick." He lights another camel, the match flaring like a muzzle flash. "And Harry Truman will be the one who hands them the axe." But what Eisenhower doesn't know yet, what no one in that room knows, is that Truman has already made a decision that will bind the two men together in a blood oath of silence and resentment that will last for the rest of their lives.
May 19th, 1944. The White House, 4:42 p.m. The Oval Office windows are open for the first time all spring. Potomac air drifts in, warm and heavy with lilac. Harry Truman stands behind the resolute desk in his shirt sleeves, tie still knotted tight like a Missouri farmer on Sunday. Across from him stands General George C. Marshall, ramrod straight, face carved from granite. On the desk sits a thick brown folder stamped "Top Secret, Eyes Only." Inside, the photographs, the intercepted letters, the hotel registries, Case Summersby's Irish lilt caught on a wiretap. Everything. Marshall doesn't flinch. "Harry, if this leaks, the whole European theater collapses. Eisenhower is irreplaceable right now. You know that." Truman removes his glasses, rubs the bridge of his nose the way he does when the decision hurts. "I know it, George. God damn it, I know it." He opens the folder, thumbs through the damning pages once more, then closes it with a soft thud that sounds like a coffin lid. "But I'm not going to let one man's zipper jeopardize 20 million lives. Not while I'm president." He picks up the phone. "Get me the incinerator in the basement." 10 minutes later, a White House steward carries the folder away. Truman watches it disappear down the corridor like he's watching a live grenade being carried out by the pin. Marshall exhales for the first time in an hour. He'll never know how close he came. "Oh, he'll know," Truman says quietly. "He's getting the letter, the one I already sent. But after today, there is no proof, no file, no second copy. Just my word and his guilt." Marshall starts to protest. Truman raises a hand. "George, I just burned the only evidence that could destroy the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force. In return, I expect that man to remember exactly who held the match." He walks to the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the south lawn where Marine One will one day land. When this war is over, if Dwight Eisenhower ever wants something from this office, a favor, an endorsement, anything, he's going to look me in the eye and remember that I could have ended him, and I didn't. Marshall nods slowly. He understands. This isn't mercy. This is leverage. Truman turns back, voice dropping to almost a whisper. And when he walks into this room one day, wearing civilian clothes, asking for my job, I want him to feel that debt like a stone in his shoe, every step.
Outside, the steward feeds the folder into the furnace. Flames lick up, orange and hungry. The photographs curl, blacken, turn to ash. The letters from a woman in London vanish forever. But memories don't burn. And 8 years later, on a cold January morning in 1953, Harry S. Truman will make damn sure Dwight D. Eisenhower never forgets whose hand once held the torch and chose not to light the fire.
November 5th, 1952, Suite 8A, Hotel Commodore, New York City, 3:14 a.m. Election night is over. Confetti still clings to the carpets. The networks have called it. Dwight David Eisenhower, the man who conquered Europe, has just conquered America in one of the biggest landslides since Roosevelt. The suite is a riot of cigar smoke and champagne. Aides slap his back, reporters shout for quotes. Mamie beams in a silk gown, waving to the crowds 30 floors below on Lexington Avenue. Eisenhower stands by the window, hands clasped behind him, staring at the city lights like he's looking across the English Channel again. The phone rings. One of his staff picks it up, listens, face suddenly serious. "General, it's the president." The room quiets like someone flipped a switch. Eisenhower takes the receiver, turns his back to the celebration. "Mr. President," he says, voice flat. Harry Truman doesn't bother with congratulations. No, "Well done, Ike." No warmth at all. "I suppose you're expecting the usual courtesy," Truman says, voice crackling over the long-distance line from Independence. The ride together, the coffee in the Oval, the smooth handoff, a pause long enough to load a clip. "Well, you're not getting it." Eisenhower's knuckles whiten on the receiver. You can almost hear the temperature drop in the room. Truman keeps going, calm, almost conversational. "You know exactly why, Ike. Some things a man doesn't forget. Some debts don't get paid with votes." Click. The line goes dead. Eisenhower stands frozen, staring at the phone like it just bit him. An aide starts to ask what was said. Eisenhower raises one hand. Silence. Then walks into the bedroom and closes the door. Behind that door, alone for the first time all night, the president-elect leans against the wall, eyes closed. 8 years collapse into one heartbeat. He remembers the letter in London, the ashes in the White House furnace, the match Truman held and didn't strike. He owes this man everything. And Truman just made sure he'll never be allowed to forget it. Out in the suite, the celebration continues. Flashbulbs pop, champagne corks fly, America toasts its new hero. But in that bedroom, the most powerful man in the free world suddenly feels very small. Because Harry Truman didn't just refuse a cup of coffee. He drew a line in the marble of the White House itself and said, "You will never cross this threshold as my guest again." And on January 20th, when Eisenhower finally arrives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he will step out of that limousine knowing one thing with iron certainty. The door stayed shut for a reason. And some doors, once closed by a man like Harry Truman, stay closed forever. January 20th, 1953, Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C., 12:03 p.m. The Lincoln Continental rolls slowly down the avenue, open-topped despite the chill. Crowds roar on both sides, waving tiny flags, screaming, "I like Ike," like it's VE Day all over again. Secret Servicemen jog alongside, eyes scanning rooftops. In the back seat, Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower sit ramrod straight, inches apart, a lifetime away. Truman stares ahead, lips pressed thin. Eisenhower adjusts his Homburg hat, the one he chose without telling anyone, a silent middle finger to protocol and to the man beside him. The silence is brutal. Finally, Eisenhower clears his throat. "Harry, who gave the order to bring my son John home from Korea for this?" Truman turns, eyes sharp behind the glasses. "I did, Ike. I thought the boy should see his father sworn in as president." A beat. Eisenhower nods once, curt. "Thank you." That's it.
The only soft words spoken in 20 blocks. Because both men know the truth. This isn't about coffee. It isn't about hats or cars or even Korea. It's about 1948, when Truman begged Eisenhower to run as a Democrat, offered him the nomination on a silver platter, promised to step aside or run as his VP. Eisenhower said no. It's about 1952, when Eisenhower finally ran, as a Republican, and let his party tear Truman apart. 20 years of treason, they called it, corruption, communism, weakness. And yes, somewhere buried deep beneath the politics, it's about a rumor Truman never proved he held over Eisenhower's head. A rumor of wartime letters, a beautiful Irish driver, and a choice Eisenhower made when the guns went quiet. Truman never used it, never leaked it to the press, but Eisenhower knows the stories floated in the campaign during the war, knows who could have stopped them with one phone call, and didn't. The car pulls up to the Capitol steps. Cameras flash like artillery. The two men climb out, plaster on smiles, wave to the throng. But as they walk side by side toward the platform, Truman leans in just enough for Eisenhower to hear. "You're welcome for the boy, General. Consider it my last act as president." Eisenhower doesn't reply. He doesn't need to. In a few minutes, he'll place his hand on two Bibles, Washington's and his own from West Point, and swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And when he does, the most powerful office on earth will finally be his. But the one door Truman slammed shut this morning will stay shut for 8 long years. Because some debts you can never repay, and some wounds you can never forgive.
November 22, 1963, Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland, 3:58 p.m. The wind whips across the tarmac like a bayonet. Air Force One touches down, ramp lowering, slow and solemn. Jacqueline Kennedy steps out first, veil fluttering, the blood still staining her pink suit. Behind her, the bronze casket carrying John F. Kennedy. Among the dignitaries waiting in the cold stands former President Harry S. Truman, 79 now, shoulders stooped, eyes red from the flight from Missouri. And beside him, in a dark overcoat, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 73, retired to Gettysburg, the weight of 8 White House years etched deeper into his face. They haven't spoken in a decade, not since that frozen ride down Pennsylvania Avenue. Truman spots Eisenhower first. No cameras catch the moment. He walks straight over, extends a hand. "Ike." "Harry." The handshake is firm, lingering, no smiles. Just 2 old soldiers who buried the hatchet long enough to bury a young president. Later at the Capitol Rotunda, they stand shoulder to shoulder as Kennedy lies in state. Truman leans in, voice barely above the mournful hush. "Terrible thing, Ike. Just terrible." Eisenhower nods, eyes fixed on the flag-draped casket. "It is, Harry. Goddamn terrible." For 3 days they move in the same circles. Blair House, St. Matthew's Cathedral, Arlington. Brief nods, shared cigarettes on the White House portico while the world grieves inside. No one asks about 1953. No one dares. But the ice doesn't break. Not really. Because some things are bigger than funerals. Back in Independence after the burial, Truman sits down at his roll-top desk and writes a letter. Not to Eisenhower, to his old aide, Dean Acheson. "I saw Ike. We spoke. But Harry Truman doesn't forget, and neither does he." Eisenhower, riding the train back to Pennsylvania, stares out at the passing fields and says nothing at all. 6 years later, December 28, 1969, Harry Truman dies quietly in a Kansas City hospital. Eisenhower sends flowers. A short note. He was a great American. No visit, no eulogy. 3 months after that, March 28, 1969, Eisenhower follows him. Heart attack at Walter Reed. On his bedside table, a faded photograph from 1945. Potsdam. Truman grinning, arms slung around Eisenhower's shoulders like brothers. Mamie finds it when she's packing up his things. She stares at it for a long time. Then slips it into a drawer.
Because some doors close forever. And some debts are paid only in silence. Please subscribe.